Hello. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Cool. It's just you ping that can't make it, isn't it? If someone's there from AUSA that can hear me. Someone will message me. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I think it'll let me, Ellie. Unless it's already happened.
I think somebody else got there before you.
Doesn't make a change, does it? Hope everyone's well. It'll let me, Ellie. Carolina, will it be like student council and something's going to say when we're actually live? Or... Oh, we are live. Perfect. Am I clear to go then? Or do we need to wait for... I see, the thing's popped up now that says... Yeah. That's good. Just let me know when you want me to start. If everyone's ready. I think everyone's here. If Ellie, I don't know if you can check that because I can only see 6 people. But I'm...
I think Adam Lambert's not here.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I can see Adam isn't here, and also Donovan Brown.
Yeah.
And the other one is I'm going to say this wrong. Zuping.
Yeah, she's not coming.
Cool. I think that's everybody.
we'll just give it a minute or so then, which will give you time to share the stream on your Facebook pages, so then more people actually watch this. It's all confusion. On your Facebook pages. Oops. Yeah, so just make sure if you're not a candidate, if you could turn off your camera, that'd be great. And then we'll start as soon as Adam Lambert appears, if he's not appeared already.
It says no response from him for the invite, so I reckon we just kind of just get started.
Just go? Okay, cool, perfect. Hi everyone, and welcome to AUSA's Sabbatical Candidates Q&A 2021. I'm Matthew. I'm usually the chair of Student Council, but today I'm chairing this Q&A. Welcome to all our candidates. I was saying to AUSA staff yesterday, we're aiming for this interview session to be sort of between a usual Student Council meeting and the Oprah interview, like in between is what we're aiming for. So that'd be good. But the aim is for the presenter not to walk off 10 minutes in, hopefully. But there we are. Right, so what is going on? What are these elections? AUSA is led by 5 elected sabbatical officers, and they're full-time paid representatives of the student body and are elected for the following academic year each spring. These officers work together as a team, each focusing on their individual remits to represent you and drive forward your interests. So the election starts next week. Voting is open between the 16th and the 18th of March. But today is about interviewing the candidates for those 5 positions. So before we start, just a bit of housekeeping. If I can find that, there we are. Please keep your camera off unless you've been asked to speak. Not sure if that applies to the candidates though. The chat function will be closed until we get to the Q&A sections. Please be patient if you're waiting for a question to be asked. I'm going to try and get through as many questions as possible, but I might not be able to get through them all, of course. Oops. And you can also ask questions if you're watching on YouTube. On Twitter, use the hashtag AskAUSA, ASKAUSA. We're monitoring that as well. Remember, this event is live on YouTube, so this goes to everyone. Please ensure that all questions are sensible and there is no disrespectful language, offensive behaviour or swearing included as well. And students will be removed from the event immediately if using inappropriate, hateful, discriminatory or oppressive language. Of course, got to keep things safe and have a lively debate as well. The way this is going to work is that we're going to go through each of the roles one by one. So first president, then welfare, then sports, then communities, and then education. And then at the end, as with the time that we've got left, we'll have a whole group discussion with any general questions that people want to ask as well. So first of all, we'll go to the president candidates. like I said. There's 3 candidates for president at this election. So yeah, can all but the president candidates put their camera off just to make this a bit more smooth? That should just be the 2 of you. Perfect. Brill. Thanks. Okay, so the way it's going to work for each role is that each candidate will have a minute to make an opening statement, and then I'll give you some questions. Some questions might come in online as well, and there'll be 2 minutes for closing statements after that as well. Like I said at the start, there are 3 candidates for president. Only 2 have been able to show up today. I've got a statement from the 3rd candidate here. What I'll do is I'll read that after we go through both of your opening statements. So first of all, we'll go to Elsa for your opening statement.
Thank you, Matthew. Hi, everyone. My name is Elsa. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in the final year of my International Relations and French degree. I've been a student campaigner for People and Planet throughout my time at university, and my hobbies are dress baking, reading, and photography. I've been involved with AUSA in the past 3 years, mainly with the Environment and Ethics Committee, which I have been vice chair of for the past 2 years. And I love all the opportunities AUSA provides for students, but our Students Association also has many flaws and need a lot of improvement, mainly with student engagement. So I want to address that. My main manifesto points are inclusivity, sustainability, and communication. That means including all students of all backgrounds and all degrees in AUSA and making AUSA more accessible, especially to Qatar students, Forster Hill students, and distant learners. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, also very, very relevant to students who would usually be in Aberdeen. Our future needs to be sustainable, and it will be my responsibility as student president to make sure AUSA acts based on the climate emergency motion that was passed in Student Council in 2019. And to me, communication means making AUSA more accessible and maintain a good working relationship with the university. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Elsa, for that. And then we go to George. A minute on the clock for you as well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. My name is George Taylor. I'm running as a protest candidate. Therefore, I'm not going to be campaigning in a conventional sense or committing to any manifesto promises. AUSA has no real power, and so these candidate promises and these elections are meaningless. When we first thought about standing for student president, me and my team, we thought about running on silly promises like demolishing Robert or free beer for all, which may have been a good idea if it didn't break election rules. But what we actually found is that over the past few elections, students' general dissatisfaction with AUSA does not translate into votes at elections. So we realised that there's an appetite for a protest candidate, that if we ran a serious campaign highlighting the failure of AUSA, it would gain support and send a message. Therefore, I'm standing as a protest candidate so students can make our anger and disappointment known. We're protesting AUSA's bureaucracy, inefficiency, awfully low turnout, and lack of student engagement or provision of a proper SU. So if you don't feel represented by AUSA, please consider a protest vote and make your objections known. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, George. I'm going to read out the statement from the 3rd candidate, Zhu Ping. She apologises for not being able to make it today, but she is travelling currently at the moment, but she's still very eager to share her plan for AUSA. So this is what she says. I believe there should be, I am very enthusiastic about participating in public welfare undertakings, because only by participating in these activities can I feel what the world needs most. I'm reading this verbatim, by the way. Therefore, after graduating from college, I participated in the Poverty Alleviation and Public Welfare Plan for poverty-stricken areas for 2 years. In the 2 years, I helped people in poverty-stricken areas develop poverty alleviation industries, collective garment processing and production, supply and marketing of special agricultural projects. After 2 years of development, the regional economy and the income of residents has increased, thus helping get rid of poverty. I think this was a very meaningful experience. After that, I worked for the Agricultural Bank of China, a Fortune 500 company, and served as a financial planner, manager, and vice president of a branch. I participated in the National Financial Planner competition and won awards. I also obtained the qualification certificates related to financial management and lawyers' qualification certificates. My experience in the bank has trained my management ability. If I win the election, I believe it will be of useful reference for my work in AUSA. Her plan for AUSA is as follows. I put forward that sharing education is a very broad concept, including sharing microeducation and sharing macro education, which has already been described in my manifesto. I won't explain too much about micro sharing. I think macro sharing is very important to everyone. In university, we must have the concept of social education. We must relate what we have learned with the focus of social attention and think about applying what we have learned to society. At the same time, we should adhere to the idea of returning to education after graduation. She says that education is a lifelong plan, and at every age needs the guidance of education. Based on the above two ideas, I put forward the concept of macro education. Sharing through this plan, we can find more inter-school resources and social resources for you so that you can realise lifelong and sustainable development education. This is just a brief statement from her, but she says that if you want to get in touch, you can email her x.zhai.20@abdn.ac.uk, and we'll hopefully refer to her manifesto throughout this as well, just to make it fair for everyone and remain impartial, of course. So the first question, I'm going to come to Elisa. Student engagement is relatively low, as seen for AUSA elections. Another example is the low number of likes, shares and comments on the AUSA Facebook page when considering the high number of students at the university. How do you explain the lack of student engagement in our Students' Association? Elisa.
Yes, so that's an excellent question, and I think that can be answered quite easily. A lot of students simply don't know about AUSA, and that's something that needs to be addressed. I know from my personal experience that I didn't know about AUSA until the vice chair of the Environment and Ethics Committee in my second year came up to me and asked me to come onto the committee because I was very involved with Shared Plan Society. So I would say that's mainly a thing. And then also our content on digital media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook isn't that creative, especially having closely followed the Edinburgh Students' Association elections that are taking place right now. So they're a week before us in terms of their Students' Union election. Their content is incredibly creative. They have TikTok. They, just go with the flow. Obviously, they also have a bigger budget and are a bigger Students' Union than Aberdeen. So I guess it's easier. But I think if we would be more creative and if we would simply manage to reach more students to even be aware of AUSA, we would also have more engagement on social media. My question kind of is, why does every single first year student knows about ISEC, but not a lot of people know about AUSA? And you can think about ISEC what you want, but they are very good in spreading their message on campus, and maybe I'll learn from that.
Okay, brilliant. So, but for you, George, is this idea of AUSA not getting much interaction on social media, does this not support your campaign?
With regards to interaction on social media, I think some students are always going to be a bit jaded and cynical about official social media pages for university or for university students' unions. But also, I agree with what else Elisa was saying about creativity, in that some students' unions have very creative social media outputs, and this is something that I found in my time as a student, that AUSA's isn't particularly creative, so that would be something that could be improved upon. But I acknowledge what you're saying is that this is something that supports our idea that AUSA, as in its current form, isn't working. If there's such a low interaction on social media, if a lot of students don't even know what AUSA is and what AUSA does, that is the biggest problem. I think the cause of that problem is it's both a lack of organisation and outreach to students, but it's also a lack of physical presence, in that there's no physical presence of AUSA up on Hill Head. And so that's the reason why so many freshers are disengaged with AUSA or don't even know what it is during their first year, in that AUSA's priority should be reaching out to students and engaging with them. But if there's not even any outreach to first years when they're coming in, then how can we expect AUSA to communicate with students throughout their time at the university?
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not commenting here on the work of the brilliant social media person at AUSA. She does a great job, just to be clear here. But what we are saying is that students perhaps don't see that content because they're not as engaged with AUSA as they should be.
They're not.
But George, your campaign is you've said in your manifesto that you're not going to campaign at all. So is you not, by you being here, is that not contradicting that?
No, I said not campaign in a conventional sense.
But this happens every year, so this is quite conventional, a sabbatical campaign.
Well, I thought it was important to be here so that I can answer questions about what is a protest candidate, what is the protest AUSA campaign, what are my particular grievances with AUSA and the campaign's particular grievances with AUSA, and what we can recommend to be changed. So I think it was important for me to be here and be able to answer questions, because if I'm criticising AUSA for being an unrepresentative, broken democracy, then I have a responsibility to turn up and take part in these conversations, because that is part of a democracy that we want to see in AUSA.
Okay, but Elsa, you've said in your manifesto that you want to help improve AUSA support for quarantining students. In most cases, AUSA doesn't even know who is quarantining. So how can we actually help quarantining students?
Yes, so as far as I'm informed, AUSA knows at least about students quarantining in Hillhead. So obviously, assuming that quarantining will be in place for quite a long time, especially when students are traveling from overseas, that will still be relevant for the new academic year. My plan is to design support kits for students that have to isolate with useful info, but also fun stuff to do. Probably all freshers who've ever lived in any halls, whether it's university-owned accommodation or PBSA, remember the Freshers Welcome Kit that is distributed in halls. So think along these lines. I want to explore options to support students who need to quarantine in government facilities to financially support them. That is really expensive. I want to work with the university to continue support calls for quarantining students, and I plan to work with Shared Planet Society to establish a grocery shopping scheme for students that have to quarantine, similar to what happened first lockdown. I agree that it's hard to reach students, but I think those who would be especially in need of that, if we promoted accordingly, would reach out and would be able to access that.
Okay, brilliant. Make sure if you're watching, you can ask questions to these two president candidates using the hashtag #AskAusa. A question that came in as well, bearing in mind the role of student president includes being on the university court. George, can you explain what the university court is? And then we'll come to you, Elsa, with the same question afterwards.
No.
No, you can't. Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
Just be honest.
Elsa?
Yes, so the university court is responsible for the strategic leadership and government of the university. Governance, sorry, not government. The governance is co-shared with Senate, but Senate is more responsible for academic matters, and the court's principal role is to oversee management of the revenue, the property, and other resources. It also approves the mission and strategy vision of the university and has a number of corporate and legal responsibilities. And the court consists of 25 members, including members of senior management, also nominated members, usually sabbatical officers, and trade union members.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. George, you've said as well that you want to abolish AUSA. Thus, that would be, the question has to be raised. Who would run societies? Who would be responsible for the management of societies? What happens to AUSA staff? Are you actually saying abolish AUSA, or are you saying reform it?
I'm not sure I've ever said abolish AUSA. I think you may be misquoting me on that. I said AUSA needs reform, and we talked about reforming some of the certain social media posts, but AUSA as an institution itself is not beyond reform. So I have never actually said campaign to abolish AUSA, so I don't know where you got that.
Perfect. Okay. So what will you do then to improve AUSA? What are your key points of reform here?
Well, in the unlikely event that I got elected and people said, yes, AUSA is desperately on the edge, I think priorities should be election reform, increased student engagement, and transforming AUSA into a proper SU. So election reform, if I can just bombard with statistics, is that turnout for student president, this position we're talking about, in 2018-2019 was 8%. The winner only received 586 votes, was 9.7% in 2019-20, only 588 votes, and 5.4% in last year's election. The winning candidate only got 398 votes. So this is an AUSA membership of 15,000 students. And we need to ask, how is any sabbatical officer properly representing students if turnout is so low? No proper democracy would accept a 5% turnout, and yet we pretend that AUSA is a democracy. So I think election reform would be the biggest change in the way that AUSA is run, because if we drive election turnout up, then AUSA will become more representative of students. Yeah. That will feed into other ways that it can change. On student engagement, I touched upon earlier that there's no physical presence up on Hillhead, but again, there's no real physical presence around campus.
Okay.
In that there's nowhere we can go and drink of an evening. There's nowhere AUSA doesn't create many social spaces for people. So we're all getting shoved off into the bobbin, which is overcrowded even on weeknights. And so if
we can even remember what the bobbin was. At this
yes.
point.
Yeah. But looking ahead to after this pandemic, when students will be very much wanting social, physical interaction on campus, there needs to be somewhere on campus for students to socialise. And I think that's part of AUSA's job. If it's a student union, it should be a proper conventional students' union with music and a bar and social events like that. And none of that has really cut through to students, especially in like my 4 years at the university.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question then. This should be a one-word answer. If you are elected, will you take up the job? And is that not hypocritical if you do?
Yes, and then if it's not hypocritical, I think if I would be elected, it proves my point in that students are dissatisfied with AUSA and that it needs reform. If I'm not elected, then I'm sure there are two other very capable candidates who would make suitable student presidents. But if I am elected, then it does prove my point.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll come to Elsa now. Do you want to respond to what George has said there, first of all, and then I'll ask you a couple more questions?
Yes, I would like to respond to the AUSA presence in Hillhead. AUSA has a presence in Hillhead, not all the time, that is true, and at the moment, obviously not because any physical presence is against lockdown restrictions, but AUSA has a building up at Hillhead, and during the past years, that was open every Saturday for drop-in sessions and for students who had questions, and also during the week in the evening. And I know that our current student president, Cecilia, actually brought her cat along most Saturdays to that. So there is a presence, but I agree with George that the presence in Hillhead, and also Forester Hill for that matter, should be expanded.
Okay, so to follow up as well, many student presidents have tried to get AUSA their own students' union building. The current president, Cecilia, who you just mentioned, came very close to securing this deal, but due to COVID, it fell through. How will you succeed where others have not? And how is AUSA having its own building different to the current arrangement?
So you mentioned it, Cecilia came very close to secure the deal and it fell through because of COVID, but I think because it fell only through because of the circumstances of 2020. It's not something that is completely out of reach. Our chances are good to get a commitment to a building in the future. Generally speaking, senior management is not opposed to the idea of having our own students' building. With COVID, there were just other priorities, and obviously finances shifted a bit with the pandemic as well. For AUSA, an own building would be amazing to be financially sustainable, which at the moment, because AUSA doesn't have any control over who is in the building. Let's take subway or the food court, etc. So that would be great for AUSA to be more sustainable as well. And that way it would differ to the current arrangement. And I believe that because it only fell through with COVID, we can get our own building in the future. So it's more a time problem rather than lack of support.
Okay, and another question that's come through. What you said on your manifesto that you want to work to get a greater range of student activities and awards recognised on the enhanced transcript. What are these? Greater range. What is the greater range?
Yes, so it's true that there are already many AUSA activities that are recognizable on the enhanced transcript, such as the King's Award, which I think was only made recognized this year or last year. Mm-hmm. But other activities such as Society's presidency and stuff are still part of the Star Award. And that means you have to attend university workshops and to get this recognized. And it's not actually criteria that are checked by AUSA, but then you get awarded for that based on your attendance of these university-led workshops and how you write on them and the reflections you have to send in. And most of these workshops are irrelevant to the positions you apply to get an award for. Mm. So I think criteria should be changed so that AUSA can be responsible for fact-checking and recognizing these positions, such as they are doing for class reps. Why are class reps something that is able to be recognized by AUSA and checked for AUSA instead of the university staff, but something that has even more to do with AUSA and less with the university, such as extracurricular activities and leadership positions within societies and sport clubs need to be double-checked by university staff.
Okay, Zhu Ping says in her manifesto that she thinks sharing education is really important and promoting lifelong education after graduation. Do you two share that opinion with her? We'll go to George first.
Sharing education, I think by virtue of us being here at university, being taught in classes, or we should be being taught in classes, that is kind of already a prerequisite of university, and that we're sharing education. And for me, coming from like a labs-based course, a lot of it is teaching you how to work in groups, work in labs, work like that. So I think that's already fulfilled. With the after graduate and lifelong learning, I think it would be an advantage if AUSA had kept closer contact with alumni and with postgraduates, so that there can be more of a student community, both during and after students' time at university, because I think that is one of the things that's sorely missing from campus at the moment, is a sense of student community. So a alumnus program and keeping up connection with alumni would be a great way of building that. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Matthew, you're muted.
There we are. Sorry about that. Perfect. So what would you do to promote this sense of shared education and promoting lifelong education as well? Elsa.
So I agree with George that getting in closer contact with alumni and to strengthen the student community is probably a good step for AUSA to go. I must say that in Zhu Ping's manifesto, I kind of thought, why is this not something that falls within the remit of the Vice President for Education rather than the student president? But I think that all of that can very good be addressed by strengthening communication and transparency, because AUSA in the end is fair for students, and the more we enforce and strengthen that student community and make students engage with AUSA, the more they automatically will share and will benefit from AUSA.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. And finally, for the student president, before part of this Q&A session, before we go on to your closing statements as well, I think for George, the main point I think you're making is that you want to enhance AUSA's profile And I think there's an underlying understanding of that in yours as well, Elsa. So what exactly will you do, George, to enhance AUSA's profile and engagement amongst the student populace?
I think already what I already said about establishing a permanent presence up on Hillhead. If it's only open on Saturday afternoons when there's a cat in the building, it's not really a proper student presence on Hillhead. So having social spaces and bringing the AUSA building into AUSA ownership so we can have licensing, so it can have events and alcohol and that kind of thing. And also increasing student engagement should be the priority for AUSA, because it spends an awful lot of time on navel-gazing and dead-end campaigns. And these campaigns may be very well and good, and they might be for a good cause. But if there's no students to power and promote them, then they're pointless. So I think making student engagement should be the priority for AUSA going into the future. And I think that's how you actually increase student engagement. AUSA's priority should be student engagement, and everything else should be secondary to that.
Okay, Elsa, and the same question to you then. How are you going to exactly enhance AUSA's awareness and engagement amongst the student population?
I mean, I kind of hinted at that earlier in the Q&A, be more like Isaac in the promotion.
Okay.
But I also think that it is really about social media presence and reaching out to student groups that at the moment are even less than the normal, Aberdeen-based student engage with AUSA. That means reaching out to the Qatar campus, reaching out to Forester Hill, and reaching out to distant learners.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. We'll come to George now for your 2-minute closing statement.
Wonderful, thank you. So, as I said, this is a protest candidacy. I'd encourage you all to vote for a protest vote and to make your concerns and objections to AUSA known. As I said, the promises of candidates are usually meaningless, so I might as well vow to demolish McRobert via Principal Boyne and give all students free beer. Again, that last one may not be such a bad idea. But for AUSA going forwards, its priorities do need to be student engagement. It needs to be bringing the AUSA building into student ownership so it has a total control over what goes on in there, so it can build a proper student community on campus. I feel that the biggest problem AUSA has at the moment is that it struggles to be relevant. It struggles to be relevant to the needs and wants of students. So that's what AUSA needs to do. It needs to be more relevant. It needs to be more engaged. It needs to serve the student population. And by that, we drive student engagement up. I also talked about election reform, in that we desperately need election reform both for this type of election and for all other types of elections, in that the AUSA membership of 15,000 students getting a turnout of under 10% objectionable, and that can be addressed in 2 ways: by a change of how the campaigns are run, by extending campaign, by campaign and endorsed candidates, and also by change of the voting system itself, so implementing a minimum turnout required for election. So with all that in mind, I strongly encourage you to vote for a protest vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, George. And to you now, Lisa.
So my manifesto makes really good points for AUSA improvement and how we can make our Students Association more relevant, but also how we can develop the students' experience further. I set realistic goals that are still big goals, and I'm hardworking, enthusiastic, and transparent. So if you vote for me as student president, you will gain 100% transparency. You will gain manifesto points that will be achieved within my time in office. And I will strive to make AUSA better for all students from all backgrounds. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Elsa. So just a reminder, George, Elsa, and Zhuping are the 3 candidates for your student president. Votes open on the 16th of March till the 18th of March, and you can find the details on the AUSA website as well. So thanks you two, and we'll see you for the Q&A at the end of this meeting as well. Next up, we're moving on to welfare. Remember, you can submit your questions online on Twitter at #AskAUSA. So if the presidents could turn their camera off and the welfare candidates could turn their camera on, and it'd be a seamless transition with no technical hitches, hopefully. That's all 4 of you. Brilliant. Okay. So once again, each candidate will have a minute to make an opening statement and 2 minutes at the end for a closing statement. We'll go first, just because he's the first one on my screen. We'll go to Callum for your opening statement.
Thanks very much, Matthew. I'd just like to thank everyone first and foremost for being here. We're all here for one common goal, and that is to meet the needs of the students at the end of the day. So thank you very much to everyone who's watching. So I'm Callum McWilliam, and I'm born and bred here in Aberdeen. I'm in my 3rd year studying geography also, which is, it's kind of okay. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this campaign, and I hope I'm able to get as much votes as possible so I can implement a lot of the things on my manifesto. I look forward to focusing on, mental health, which is especially important at this time, at these unprecedented times at the moment. But not only that, physical health as well. So thank you very much. That's my introduction.
Well, thank you, Callum, and then Ivana.
Hello, I'm Ivana, and I use pronouns she, her. In the past 4 years, I have been involved in many AUSA activities and university activities. Currently, I am ordinary member on the welfare committee. I was a class rep. I was school convener for the School of Language, Literature, Music, and Visual Culture. I was mentor on the Student for Student scheme. And throughout these roles, it became very apparent that university is lacking on how it's treating students' welfare, and it seems like league tables are first in before students' welfare. While I care very deeply about the university and association, I really want the students' welfare to be improved. I realize that welfare is not only mental health, but it's also about other issues, and therefore there are 3 broad categories that I would like to focus if elected. I would like to work on better housing, better support, and health, both mental and physical. I'm bringing some new ideas to the table while also noting that there are many things that we currently have but need to be improved. I want stigma surrounding asking for help slowly disappear. I want inclusivity for all. I want us to be more transparent with their work. I want to see big progress in how students' health, welfare, and housing issues are treated. If you follow my campaign, you can see how I plan to achieve these points, and hopefully right now as well. And I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivana, and then we'll go to Osoya.
Okay. Hi, my name is Osoya Philip. I use pronouns she and her, and I am currently finishing up my 4th year in my AUSA of Biological Sciences. I'm mainly running on a platform that aims to improve student support for people who are struggling with long-term health conditions, as well as improving current safety and security measurements. So I would be doing this by implementing a no detriment rule that allows students to have access to student support despite possibly a lack in medical evidence, and also by implementing a rule where you can be zoomed into a class if you are unable to travel to campus and attend them in person, assuming that we will be back to traditional teaching soon. And I also want to improve the publicization in current sexual assault survivor provisions, as well as just support the message that CASE is trying to spread. Because while they are doing a really good job, I do think that they could benefit of more funding and more publicization. And overall, I think I'm just aiming to make sure that everyone has the support they need. And thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Natalie for your 1 minute opening statement. Remember, you can ask questions at #AskAusa. Natalie.
Thank you. Hi, as you say, I'm Natalie. I'm a fourth year English with Creative Writing student, and most recently you might have seen me as the chair of the Students for the No Detriment Policy campaign. I'm running to be the next Vice President for Welfare because I believe that I will be the best person to lead on topics of student welfare, particularly as we move into a period of transition from the pandemic to a hopefully brighter post-pandemic world. As we've seen, students' mental health has already been severely impacted by the last 12 months, and I don't believe that this transition will be easy or quick. Looking forward, I would like to ensure that all students have the opportunity for support to work through problems caused by the pandemic, and that everybody's welfare is taken into consideration. I'd like to be able to refocus our efforts on issues that have fallen to the wayside over the last year and ensure that all shapes and sizes of welfare are considered as we move forward together. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Natalie, for that. Just quickly to say, as with some topics that may be covered later on as well, not just in the welfare section, but it's probably best just to give a trigger warning as we may be talking about issues including mental health, which may be sensitive to some people. Okay, so question that's come in here, we'll go to Callum first. How will you approach I think that the basis of this question is that how will you ensure you stay in this role for the full term, and how will you approach separating your role as someone who changes processes at the university rather than being someone who actually provides personalised welfare support and advice to students?
Yeah, so I sort of aim to plan. I aim to create like a lot of short-term and long-term goals. For example, one of my long-term goals is to and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to implement mental health first aid training, which I believe is fundamentally important, especially at this point during time, because you could potentially save a life. It's about being able to identify when someone isn't doing so well. So that's quite a skill in itself, without them verbally actually telling you. So that's quite important. That would be one of my long-term goals, which would be broken down into a series of like short-term goals. So, for example, I think this time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, but I'm not actually sure if mental health first aid training has been implemented at the here at University of Aberdeen. But this time, I actually know, like my dad, for example, can deliver the course, so I could contact him. So he could deliver it here, once everyone comes flooding back, once things sort of draw to a close with regards to the pandemic. I think there's going to be a lot of anxious people, people who are afraid to maybe be in large crowds, and just a plethora of issues that really have been enhanced by the pandemic.
Okay, thanks, Callum. We'll go to Ivana. Your manifesto mentions an "It's Okay to Talk" campaign. How will you get people to How will you get people to participate in that campaign?
I would like to create little focus groups for different types of people. I kind of came up with this campaign because I wanted people who identify as male, LGBTQ+ community, and BAME community to come to different groups and talk about what they might be worrying about, because I think sometimes it may be hard to talk about their feelings. And how am I going to achieve it? I will do it through social media promotion. I would love to cooperate with all of our liberation and sections forums, who usually have great engagement, and hopefully they would like to collaborate on this project.
So my mic messed up there. Thanks, Ivana. We'll go to Natalie. A question's come in on Twitter. Where was the AUSA campaign for a no detriment policy before it was voted against by the Senate?
So yeah, the campaign unfortunately did not exist before that was voted on by the Senate. There unfortunately wasn't a huge amount of student knowledge or wealth or understanding on what the Senate was voting on, or even when the votes were taking place, which is incredibly unfortunate, because I do believe that if that had been more widely advertised and if more students had been informed of that vote, the no detriment policy would have passed in the first place.
Brilliant, thanks, Natalie. And then another question for Oshoya on Twitter. How do you plan to implement much needed support for disabled students after the pandemic who find it difficult to travel to class? And how do you plan to work with and support the Disabled Students Forum?
Okay, so first of all, I would really like to have online access to classes. Since right now, everybody is able, or like last semester, everybody was able to say that they didn't want to attend classes in person, so they were zoomed in, even though teaching happened on campus. I think it would be a quite easy transition to just have this as a regulation that if you are unable to travel, you can just let them know and be like, hey, I cannot attend, can I be zoomed in? Because I strongly believe that everyone should be able to attend in person and have the experience, even if they just feel not great. And I also want to work really closely with the Disabled Student Forum, because I believe that while I might know some issues that I have faced personally, I'm not going to be able to know about every single disability and issues that they have faced with it. So I would like to have an open discussion with them and make sure that they can raise problems, so I can kind of work with them and make sure that everything is met and answered.
Brilliant, thanks. So another question from Twitter from Magnus. This is to all of you. What would the welfare candidates do to further highlight available AUSA services and turnout in general? We'll go to Callum.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question. Obviously, I'm hoping to do a lot of work with AUSA. I'm hoping to lobby them and pressure them as much as I can to push forward these issues at university, like mental health and even physical health. So for disabled people, I'd like to, sort of start up, speak to them closely in person once the pandemic is over, or even virtually at the moment, to establish sessions where we can address some of the really important issues here at Aberdeen. So it's about that close contact. I have actually spoken to the counselling service as well. I did ask them how their services are dealing with the situation at the moment. They said that they're not too overwhelmed, which I was actually pretty surprised about. So it's really just about that sort of communication, which is really, really important, I think. And they're, as I said, they're not too overwhelmed, and they've got So communication is key.
Okay, and Ivana, how so there's two that, so to answer the first question, what would the welfare candidates do to further highlight available AUSA services and turnout in general? But then there's another question that's coming for you specifically. How are you aiming to go beyond it's okay to talk? We need action beyond awareness.
Yeah, sure. So how I would promote AUSA activities, I already have a plan in place where I would do weekly shout outs for our section forums, our student groups that deal with welfare. And for the second question, how I aim to go beyond talking, I have some action points there, such as disability awareness, where I also wanted to host workshops where students can come and listen to people talk about and their experiences, ask them questions. And yeah, I just was hoping to open an honest conversation between people and how they feel.
Okay, thanks, Ivana. Same question again to you. What will you do to further highlight available AUSA services and turnout in general, Oshoya? And you've also said in your manifesto that you want to organise safe walking groups between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. How would they work? And how would they be staffed as well? Would they need self-defense training as well, is another question.
Okay, so I'm going to start with how would I make it more presentable?
Yeah, how can I put this easier for you? Well, basically, how would you further highlight available AUSA services and turnout in general? And then we'll go on to talk about your idea for the walking, okay?
Okay, so I think, first of all, social media is a really good tool, but right now, not many people are reached. So I would try to work on having more presence on social media. And I would also try to work with university to have more emails sent out, because now they are sent out at a frequency, but they don't always contain things that are relevant to students. So I would try to be more transparent and just put more things into the emails. And I would also, if traditional teaching resumes at one point and we can go back to campus, I think that just putting flyers up on campus has a really big reach, because I have personally learned a lot of things from just seeing those flyers. And I think that it would be nice to have a more active flyering and postering, so that students who are not present on social media can still feel included and know what's happening.
Okay, so then the second question there, okay. Sorry, whilst I was trying to formulate one in my head as it was coming in, but your manifesto says that you want to have these walking groups between 11 p.m. And early in the morning. How would these work? How would they be staffed? And yeah, go with that.
Okay, so I think that we have a really good student body and everyone is very happy to help. So I was thinking that we could have some free self-defense trainings and student volunteers could sign up. So if you have 4 or 5 different main points where most students live, like for example Hillhead, you could have hourly meetings in the library, and one person who's trained in self-defense could walk with the other students. And I feel like
sorry, it would be a student that's trained in self-defense, just to be clear.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was hoping to work with university to make sure that this goes onto the students' transcript who are volunteers, kind of similar to how Nightline works. And I think that, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
So having more people walking together would allow students to stay longer in the library who might be a bit skeptical because they don't want to walk home alone at night. And I also think that a lot of students rely on computers in the library. Yeah. So especially during exam, they should have the opportunity to stay there longer without having to be afraid to have to walk home.
Okay, thanks. We'll go to Natalie. Again, same question to you. What will you do to further highlight available AUSA services and Turnout in general? And secondly, in your manifesto, you've said that you want to ensure that there is gender identity and trans inclusivity training available to all staff, which we all agree is very important. But what will you do once you've been told that there's no money for this?
Cool. So I'll start with the first question. I think to be able to further highlight AUSA services and Turnout, I would really like to utilise what we already have available. So pushing motions through Student Council, getting in touch with the Liberation and Section forums to ensure that the students are involved with them, know and understand what it is that AUSA can offer, and to ensure that their students are going to be involved in campaigns and Turnout. I think as well getting in touch with sort of student leaders. So, for instance, the chairs of societies, the undergrad and postgrad conveners, and the committees that are already run by AUSA are very good ways to sort of reach out to people. Personally, I would also like to run drop-in sessions so people can come to me and be able to discuss any issues that they have, and hopefully I would be able to give them some information in return. Moving on to the second question, I would really hope that we would be able to find some money to include these sort of trans inclusivity and gender identity training, as I do believe it's really important for staff to be able to understand exactly what it is that these students and staff members go through. Depending on funding for that, I would really like to be able to run in-person training as and when it's safe to do so. However, I believe that we should be able to find some funding to stretch to at least some online training as well.
My face there wasn't reacting to what you were saying. It was I nearly knocked my laptop over. So just in case that's seen as a breach of impartiality. Thanks, Natalie. Back to you, Callum. I never asked you something personal about your manifesto. Where is? There you are. Sorry. How would your support booklet differ from the information AUSA provides on its website, and when on campus, the numerous booklet AUSA provides? And secondly, are you aware that unconsented sex is sexual assault?
Yes. So to answer your first question, I'm talking about a sort of revolutionary booklet here in terms of the university, something that people haven't seen before. I'm really eager with the idea to make great change. After all, isn't the slogan caring, creating and changing? So I'd like to obviously implement mental health first aid training, which I've spoken about in great depth. I'd like to lobby the university to try and sort of fundraise for that and pay for it. I'd add that into my booklet. I quite liked Catriona's idea of drop-in sessions as well. I would be having drop-in sessions myself. I think that's a fantastic idea. I would also be having voice sessions, which I briefly spoke about in my manifesto, for minority groups, which is so important, LGBTQ groups. So it's really just the entire ideas of mine compiled into one booklet. So it sort of filters into everyday aspects of the welfare of individual people. And your second question was, Matthew, sorry?
I believe in your manifesto that you mentioned unconsented sex. Are you aware that unconsented sex is sexual assault?
Unconsented sex is, yes, of course. Yes, it's sexual assault, yeah.
Okay, but I think that was just something that people wanted clarifying, of course.
I know there was a little mishap in my manifesto, but it was just a typo. But yes, with regards to that, I turned up to a few meetings last year, and consent is quite a touchy subject. It's quite difficult to know when someone is consenting, i.e. is it through tone, is it through verbally telling you? So there's all sorts of different parameters to it there. So I would definitely be looking to have some consenting sessions for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone would follow that train of thought as well. We'll go to Havana. Again, there is a question that's come in for you. Might be the same question, to be fair. There we are. You speak of a free sex protection distribution scheme. Are you aware that AUSA and the university already give this out for free?
Yeah, I'm aware that it's given out for free in the Student Association building. I worded it poorly in my manifesto, but what I wanted to do is something similar to the free periods product scheme where you can order it online. I've now noticed that there is a section on the AUSA website where you can order it from Durex, I think. But I would still like to have something more included within university, or definitely better advertised, because I just noticed it yesterday.
Brilliant, thank you. Orsoya, in the same vein, I guess, as well, you've said that you want to have easy access to sexual testing kits. What's your plan for that?
I don't think that was in my manifesto.
Oh, sorry, no, that was in...
That's mine, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Pretty sure.
They're in the wrong order. Never mind, that's my fault. Anyway, but the question I will ask you then is, in your better access to support section of your manifesto, you basically describe, apparently, according to this person, the current student support service. What else do you suggest on top of what's already there?
So right now, I think the main issue is that even though student support is meant to be there, diagnosis times take very long time in certain cases. So despite it being there, it's not accessible for everyone. So even though I do think that they do a really good job in supporting once they accept it, you can't really think of it as an accessible support if you might not get the proof because it takes you 2 years to get diagnosed. So I just feel like I want to speed up the process so everyone can get access to it faster and just be supported during their studies.
Okay, thanks. And then final question for the welfare candidates before we move on to your closing statements. Natalie, we've had this underlying theme already that there is perhaps a lack of engagement with certain AUSA activities and awareness of AUSA and its existence. So what will you do to get students to attend your weekly drop-in sessions to raise welfare and housing issues?
Yep, so I would really push to ensure that these are well advertised across social media. I think particularly we've seen that students are more likely to engage with things like Instagram, and less so Facebook. I think really being able to target where these things are advertised is key. I think that once we're able to move back onto campus, as Ursula was saying, flyers are an excellent way to advertise things to students. And just having a physical presence on campus as well is incredibly important. So I would ensure that I was very seen and visible for students, so they would be able to approach me and they would be able to ask me questions, even outside of drop-in sessions as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, Callum, your 2-minute closing statement, please.
Yep. So I would just like to say thank you very much for coming along, everyone. I'm Callum. I'm caring. I'm creating. I'm changing. I'm not just going to talk the talk. I'm going to walk the walk. I'm eager to implement the things I've spoken about. I know people who can deliver the mental health first aid training course at Aberdeen, one of them being my dad. If we lobby the university, pressure the university enough, I believe we can make this happen. And it needs to happen because we're in unprecedented times. Minds reports that there's 73% of students have reported a decline in their mental health. This is huge. This is 3/4 of the student population across Britain, which is absolutely incredible. When it comes to housing, I'm willing to work with local MSPs such as Kevin Stewart to address some of the housing issues that students might face, especially in the private rental sector. Student safety as well, I'm also quite big on. Philip, I quite liked Philip's idea about walking home. I feel like that's really important about feeling safe. I'm Callum, I'm creating, I'm caring, and I'm changing. Thanks very much.
Okay, we'll go to Ivana next for her closing statement.
I've been engaged with AUSA for the past 4 years, and I feel like I know it nearly inside out. Therefore, I feel like I'm a good candidate because I would know what the students want because I've been engaged with so many. But I also see the issues within AUSA and university. I really care about the issues that students face, and I want to see a real change. So vote for me, vote for United AUSA. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivana. And Ursula.
So I want to help improve current provisions present for students struggling with health problems, because even if they are present, they are not always accessible, and I want to make sure that nobody is let down by a provision that's set in place to help them. And I also want to make sure that there are more safety trainings, like self-defense, as well as the walking home groups, just so that students don't have to be afraid walking alone. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Matthew, you're muted.
I know. I was trying. I was speaking, but it wasn't doing it. Right. And Natalie, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So I've spent the last 4 years focusing on supporting people, both inside the university and without. I've taken part in various types of mental health training, and I've worked with student support services at the university as well. During this upcoming period of transition, I would really like to be able to support students in the way that they deserve and ensure that their welfare is of top priority throughout the year to come. I'm aware that we've experienced a once-in-a-lifetime global event in this pandemic, and it has impacted both our physical and mental health. I'd really like to be able to support students as we transition into this post-pandemic world. I'd like to continue to work with the Liberation and Section Forums, who I believe have done a fantastic job over the last 4 years that I've been at the university, campaigning for both access and representation. And lastly, I would really like to ensure that all shapes and sizes of student welfare are considered and to provide support that is tailored to each student's own experience. Thank you.
Okay, so they are your 4 candidates for Vice President for Welfare. Thank you, Callum, Ivana, Orsoya, and Natalie for joining me today. Next up, it's sport, but remember, AUSA elections open from the 16th to the 18th of March. You can vote on the AUSA website, and if you want to participate in this ongoing Q&A, you can tweet us at #AskAusa. There we are. So we're just waiting for the 4 sports candidates, or no, it's 4.
I think I'm the only one.
You're the only one. Well, this
Yes.
is. Well, we should have Victoria or yourself, Adam Lambert, and Donovan Brown. I wasn't aware we were missing both of them. Should we just go, or are they there and not turning their cameras on? I'll wait for someone from AUSA to tell me.
Neither of them are in the chat, so I'm assuming that it's just Victoria today.
Perfect. Okay. What we'll do then is we'll try and mention some of their manifesto points as we go, but we'll go for your 1 minute statement first, please, Victoria.
Okay. Well, I'm Victoria. I'm a 4th year politics and international relations student, and I am running for VP for Sports. I've been part of the sports committees in my 2nd year. I was on my 2nd year. I was alumni convener. Then on 3rd year I become vice chair, and then this year I am events convener. What I want, if I become VP for Sports, is improve the communication with the clubs. I know that's difficult, but because obviously all the amount of work the sabbatical officer or vice president has, but I'll try my best. Also, I will update the booking method for training slots. That happened to me in the past, that AUSA and ASB have double booked the same time slot to another club, because there is not a common booking system. So I want to implement that. And also I want to promote and encourage inclusion of sports. I don't want anyone to let out or feel let out because they are not that sporty or that fit. Like, everyone can do it. And obviously, like, I'm not the most fit person, but I've been in the lacrosse team for the past 4 years. I've never played lacrosse before coming to uni, and my club made me feel very involved and inclusive. So that's the thing I want to everybody in the university be and feel.
Okay, thanks for that, Victoria. What I'll do is I'll read out various bits that have been submitted so far by the other 2 candidates before we continue. Just give me a second to get up Donovan's manifesto. So Donovan Brown is another candidate for sport. He says, just do your best. I'll be there being your voice and for supporting you all. He says that sport's not only a domain for the enthusiastic, but a medium for our health, both physical and mental. He says he supports anyone who applies themselves to any kind of sport, and he would like to simply assist those who like to play sports or any physical training, whether it would be for fun, rehabilitation, or even a career path. He says he's always liked to delve into the science of sports and fitness and has found benefits of sports from daily exercise, from deep reflexes to helping with day-to-day activities to concentration to help students studying. Therefore, he says he would like to become a vice president for sports, as it would allow him to represent the sports societies, leading, listening to people and trying to make the best decisions so that people can fully achieve their goals in their sports environment and to be better their sports itself in any way possible. Overall, he says he just wants the best for everyone. And then the 3rd candidate for Vice President for Sport, his name is Adam Lambert. He says he wants to work alongside clubs to create an effective taster session timetable with the goal of making trying out a wide range of sports easier and less overwhelming. He says he wants to work to increase the awareness of para sports in the community and aim to bring these opportunities to our campus. He also says he wants to create innovative fundraising events to raise more funds to award to sports clubs and assist clubs in getting sponsors that can help cover club expenses. He also wants to create funding for students unable to pay sporting fees to increase accessibility to sports for all. He says that if you vote for him to be your vice president for sports, he will use his experience and passion for sports to improve the sporting experience and accessibility of sports for everyone. So that's just a brief summary of the other two candidates who haven't been able to make it today for whatever reason. We do have Victoria with us now. So the first question that's come in for you, Victoria, is that being a sabbatical officer is meant to be a political representational role and different from an AUSA staff member. In your manifesto, it says you will be doing admin work already being performed expertly by staff members. Why do you think you'll be doing this work better than someone with years of experience and who is trained to do this?
Well, first of all, during this 2021, I've been in the Triple S leadership program. So Triple S, for those who know, is the student Scotland, the sports Scottish student. They are helping all the universities with the sports and inclusion and how promote fundraising and all that kind of stuff. So I think with being part of that has helped me to improve a lot in those areas, and I think more like a political, I want to be the voice of the students and the clubs. I want to represent them, and I want to arrive to the university what they want.
Okay, thanks for that. Just a reminder to people watching that you can tweet us questions at #AskAusa. In your manifesto, you say that you want to reorganize the schedules and facilities, considering the needs of each club in such a way that there is a coexistence between all. How will you do that? And also, how will you update the booking methods for training zones at ASV?
I go in first with the booking method because that leads to the other part. I think it's essential to have a common booking system between AUSA and ASV because they work together, but they have to work together in every aspect. For that reason, I think if that happens and we have a common system, it's going to be much easier for everybody. And what I want to do with the time slots and the training zones in general, course, fields, is sometimes normally Fieldhead is a multi-purpose facility for sports. Not only lacrosse, but hockey, football, a lot of different kind of sports uses, and sometimes that happen about overbooked the field, and that's then you don't have how to go or how to manage your training because another person or another club take your slot. And I think it's essential to organize all the slots so everybody is happy.
Okay, brilliant. And we just mentioned in Adam's manifesto, he says that there needs to be an increased awareness or prevalence of para sports at the university. Do you echo those concerns, or do you think the efforts would be better placed elsewhere?
That's a really good question. So actually, on my first year as alumni convener on the sports committee with the previous vice president, Nick Barry, we did an inclusion sports day, and we tried to make everybody involved in it. Mm. Unfortunately, was a rainy day, and not a lot of sports came to do it. They gave us our word to do it. I know like a lot of people who are keen to do it, and I'm sure, like, if it's organized properly and like we have all the materials and organization, we could do it. Like, we can make para sports available for those who have those disabilities and want to join the club.
Okay, brilliant. You've also said that you want to. How do you think sports can recover after the pandemic?
I think that with the help of Triple S and Bucks, that will happen, and I hope in a short amount of period. The most probably, as it happened on the first term of this year, is going to be the outdoor sports coming back first. And to be honest, that helped me a lot, having training during the first half of the of this year. Now I'm regretting it, not having it, because being locked in my house all the time, it's not helping with your mental health.
It's not the best, is it? But never mind.
Yeah. So what I want is come back as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and very organized, so everybody can join back their sports.
Okay, thanks. And what we'll do then is we'll go to your closing statement now as well. 2-minute closing statement.
Well, as I say, I want the best for this university and for the sports. I want to stop this like separation, division between sports and societies. Actually, a guy the other day texted me, like, I'm not a sports person, so I don't know. I'm sure if I want to be involved in the VP for sports voting, and he said, like, every vote counts, and like you don't have to feel like that. Like, you don't need to be the most sporty, like, fit, healthy person. Like, if you want to join a club or just have fun, we have the intramural sessions that's helped a lot of people through the year with their mental health and just having fun. And I want to implement that back. As I say, I want to improve the communication between the clubs. I think that's important. Know what their needs are, and of course, like, as I say, like, update the booking method so anybody stays apart or like are not available to use their time slots.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you, Victoria. Victoria Orr is a candidate for Vice President for Sport alongside Adam Lambert and Donovan Brown, who couldn't be here today for whatever reason. Same as before, voting for Vice President for Sport opens on the 16th of March and closes on the 18th of March. We'll move on now to the Vice President for Community candidates who've been waiting patiently. Remember, if you want to ask any questions to our candidates, you can use the hashtag #AskAUSA. Hi guys, how are you both? Good.
Well,
perfect. Sorry about the wait, we got to you eventually. Of course, the order that we're doing this in doesn't demonstrate how important we see any of the roles, of course. But as always, we'll go to Gavin first for his minute opening statement.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew, and thank you very much everyone else to being here. My name's Gavin. For those who don't know, I'm a 4th year politics and international relations student. In my time at university, I've been actively engaged in the Students' Union, firstly as a member of various student communities, student societies, and directly involved in executive decisions there. More recently, I've been a member of the Societies Union Committee as an honorary member, and in that role, I've pushed quite passionately for to treat societies as fairly as possible by AUSA, and taking a fairly objective approach where possible in terms of affiliations and grants. If I'm elected, I want to ensure that we can return as quickly as we possibly can, that societies, so that they can book rooms, plan trips, do whatever they want to do. I think that's very important. I want to work extensively with Liberation Forums and further their aims and objectives and increase diversity and inclusion at the university level. And I also want to make it clear that I'm for the no detriment policy. It's absolutely essential that students' grades are not effective. And leading on from that, one of the things I'm really passionate about is to improve the relationship that we have between the university and graduate employers and employers generally. I think that's really important. And also, I want to engage fully with the Qatar and the Forster Hill campuses and make sure that their voices are absolutely heard. So thank you very much. And I look forward to Matthew's questions and grilling.
That's the aim here. We'll go to Camilo next.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Camilo. I'm a third-year student. I'm doing a PhD in geography. I've been also participating in AUSA in different ways, part of the forum, the BAME forum, and as part of societies like Latin American Society. I've been, very interested in learning more about student governance and about student participation. I feel right now, and I chose this position, to run for this position because I feel right now one of the main objectives is to rebuild our sense of community. I think it's one of the most affected things by this situation, by the current situation. So I feel that's the most urgent thing to do right now. And forums and societies and other, establishments where students can participate, I think is the best way to achieve that. And to do that, I will be building on my own experience in, as campaigning and being part of different activism groups here in this uni, here in this country, and also back home in Latin America. And I think the fact that I've been involved in such different environments also give me skills to deal with the diversity that already exists in the uni, and also to promote that diversity is properly represented at the uni too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to both of you. So the role of Vice President for Communities involves being involved, as you mentioned, with the Liberation Fora and the Societies Union Committee. Gavin, you mentioned being on the Societies Union Committee. A question's come in saying that there has been an increasing discourse amongst some students saying that the Societies Union Committee has become known as the Racist Council Committee. In your manifesto, you mentioned being part of the committee. How do you foresee this view existing, impacting your work with the Liberation Fora? And if this is true, and if this view does exist, what will you do to change this?
Well, I don't think that does exist. I reject that. I think that the Societies Union Committee looks objectively when societies put in their applications to be affiliated. Look, it's not up to the committee to judge whether something is right or wrong. It's to judge whether a society can meet the requirements for being a society and do that in keeping and in a constant, obviously, relationship and not undermining the bylaws of AUSA. So I think that's the important thing. Now, does that mean at some points that there might be a society that's affiliated that people don't necessarily like? Yes. I'm sure there's political societies. There's political societies on the left, there's political societies on the right, and I'm sure whatever way you sit on the political spectrum, you might be offended by what one of those societies does or what one of those societies says. But I don't think it's up to the Societies Union Committee to actually judge whether it's right or wrong, what kind of political societies we should have, but rather, do you have the necessary requirements to be able to affiliate for a society? And often that's the case where some societies will dip below the required amount of members, and therefore they will be disaffiliated. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to treat I think, political societies and societies in general on an objective basis, and I'm passionate about that.
But if, regardless of whether the committee has shown signs of racism or has exhibited racism, there is a view from some that it is or could be considered to be or could have had examples of racism. So we want to stop that. So how would you do that? And of course, if you were not able to stop it, do you not feel that would impact your role within the Liberation Forum?
Well, look, I'm not sure where that statement has come from, and I'm not sure who's mentioned that. But what I would say categorically is that there's nothing discriminatory about the way that the Societies Union operates, and wherever there is, and wherever there has been, we would root it out completely and absolutely. There's no question about that. But as I say, I don't know where that allegations come from, so I can't say anything with that, any substance.
Yeah, of course. And like I said before, we're taking in questions. People can submit questions using #AskAusa, and obviously the questions that I'm reading from as well are mostly pre-submitted as well. So to you, Camilo, by the time you take office, students will have already finished this academic year and received their grades. How will your work as a sabbatical officer on the no detriment policy make any difference?
Yeah, I think not only this, but any policy is supposed to work, in the long term. So I feel like I'm not working only to improve current students or this semester students, let's say opportunities and experience at the uni. I feel like a proper policy shouldn't be thought only for a specific group, right? So I think the fact that this policy includes more support for students struggling and also acknowledges that we are not experiencing this in the same way because we are very different people, different backgrounds, and different resources. So this is a good way to have a policy that acknowledges that in the future. So I think this is very important because usually these debates that are talking about a very specific moment in time usually leave experiences and knowledges for future events. So I think that's the reason why I'm still on this. Of course, this will be decided very soon, and is basically either Gavin or me will have to work with whatever is decided on that. I think, but of course, I think we both say how strong we feel about this, and yeah, I think it's very important to work on this now. It's not something that depends either it's going to affect me or affect the people I know right now. It's supposedly something that will be better for the future of every student.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gavin, you've already clearly said that you support the no detriment policy. I'll ask you the same question. What will you do how will your work as sabbatical officer on the no detriment policy make any difference, because everyone will have graduated by that point?
Well, I like what Camilo said there. I think we both share, absolutely support for that policy, and it needs to be implemented. I think the role of the VP for Communities is essentially, it's a lot more campaigning as others might be, and others of course campaigning itself, but Communities I think particularly has that role. So I think in that sense, working with the university authorities, so whether that be the Senate or Student Council, which just on Monday have passed a motion supporting the no detriment policy. So it's working with those bodies, and also I think there has to be, if it ends up that this Senate decision then doesn't come to a conclusion, we've then got to push them, perhaps negotiate, try and at least find a way forward out of this, because the fact is that the students' mental health has suffered during this pandemic, and I think all of us on this call will agree that as a result it's been a lot more difficult for us, and so grades should reflect that. Me and Camilo and I, I'm sure, share this view, although we're standing against each other. But I think ultimately the Communities officer has to push the university authorities wherever that be, and wherever the power is made, the power is decided, as much as we can. But as I say, it looks like there'll be a resolution at least in the next week or so. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
Okay, and you mentioned there as well that you think the role of the VP for Communities is about campaigning. So this brings me on to a question that's been submitted. What experience do you have with campaigning for change?
So in terms of campaigning, I've dipped my toe a little bit in sort of politics, both internally and externally out of university. I've also been involved in various leadership areas. I currently, my role in the Debating Society is to organise weekly debates, which has been particularly difficult now during the pandemic. But I think I'm certainly qualified in that sense. I would say when I said the role is about campaigning, not just campaigning, of course, but I would say more so perhaps than other roles about campaigning. But certainly, I've had experiences, whether it be political, leadership-wise, and things like that.
Okay, so Camilo, the same question to you. What experience do you have with campaigning?
Since I did my undergrad in a different university back home, I already have some experience working in the student government and also campaigning outside of the university context, especially like environmental and social justice or social issues campaigning, and also even some like electoral related campaigning back in my country, for local and national elections. And here in Aberdeen, from the BAME forum, I think we've worked in terms of sharing students' concerns, in BAME related issues, and also I've been involved with the student council, and I think this experience is in some way is campaigning. Is trying to reach agreements with people and try to find common objectives, and then lobby them and try to push them in a democratic way. So I think that's been a good experience for me in different environments, not only at the uni.
Okay, perfect. We've got a question that's just come in on Twitter from Martin. AUSA liberation forums include intersectional movements such as disabled students, LGBTQ+, and BAME. He says he can't help notice there is no section for worker liberation. Why haven't any of the candidates mentioned this? Why not aim for class liberation? I think he's suggesting that there should be a forum for worker students. Do you agree with that idea, Gavin?
Yes, I do agree with that idea. Obviously, it takes some kind of sort of testing and sort of negotiation to figure out how that would be done, and how that, because obviously it's different class-wise than it would be with other things. I noticed as well that the Communities Committee has run quite an extensive campaign in the last year in terms of workers' rights. So it'd probably be a case of working with the Communities Committee, as well as, getting this implemented. Hopefully that would be a long-term objective, though, and we could continue some of the campaigns that have been going on with the Communities Committee.
Okay, perfect. And Camilo, on the same point, why haven't you mentioned a worker liberation forum, and why not aim for class liberation?
Yeah, I feel you can see from my manifesto and also from the other advertising piece that the AUSA asked for us to record, that were going to be published maybe tomorrow, I think, for communities, that my approach is intersectional in terms that you cannot just think of class separated from gender or from racial identity or for many other factors. I do agree if there's a feeling and if there's workers, like student workers, feel that they want and they need a space specifically in the forums. I think that's something that is perfectly, fair to do. I am a student and also a worker, and I've been also working, since the end of my final undergrad year. I was also always working and studying, and we have definitely different experiences, and we need a different type of support and representation. So I will definitely agree that's something that could be worked on, and it depends of meeting with people and see how that will work. Yeah.
Okay, Gavin, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, can I just add to that as well? Because a lot of students have very different experiences when they're at university. A lot of students are lucky enough to go for the 4 years of university and not work, but many have to work in 0 hours contracts and sometimes very difficult hours, and balancing that in between at times quite a hard degree is difficult. So I would echo that, and I would say especially particularly people on students on 0 hours contracts, that should be a concern.
Okay, thanks. Camilo, in your manifesto, you say you will campaign for bus fare reduction, as well as the expansion of the uni's bicycling scheme and the creation of a community bike shop. Is that not just doubling up on efforts already made by B-Cycle? How will it be already different? Or is it just wasting AUSA resources by doubling up on these things?
Yeah, I wanted to put something about transport, sustainable transport, and affordable transport on my manifesto, because that's what I'm researching on my PhD. So I will say that even though I have a general experience on campaigning and other topics, this is definitely something I have more experience in, and I would like to bring this to the table. There is B-Cycle is running. I think has helped a lot of people, but it's not directly connected to AUSA anymore. So I think it's good to have something running from AUSA because, for example, in terms of availability, in terms of funding, we cannot depend on B-Cycle. They also depend on funding and of people volunteering, so they cannot be open every day. They cannot be open in different hours. So I feel like their work is very, very important, but we cannot depend on something external if we are trying to give good access to every student. So I feel like it's not doubling on something that is done, but we can have our own going, and I feel like it could be something that brings more people together to learn how to treat their bicycles and how to get new bicycles, and also to share different knowledge, and that's it.
Okay, Brill. And final question before we go to your closing statements to Gavin. In your manifesto, you speak of new opportunities for society's funding. What are these, and how will you accomplish these?
Yeah, so I think that point that I made, actually, it was intentionally broad, and the reason behind that was, I think that having dealt with society's funding itself, it's sometimes quite a difficult and quite a complex issue, and very specific from society to society. So a sports society would be very different from a society that wants to open public discussion or public debate and things like that. And there would be a lot more requirements for one than the other, and different kind of specifications or types of requirements, i.e. room bookings, or perhaps a trip away for sports societies, etc. But I think the point I meant when I made that manifesto is that we need to improve the relationship between the governing bodies, the societies committee, AUSA in general, and societies who are seeking funding. Oftentimes what I've found is that it is very difficult to get some things passed and to get some level of funding that to normal university students would seem quite an easy thing to pass and an easy thing to implement. You want to do a trip away, you want to do something that seems fairly easy to fund, but there's actually a lot more complexity around the decision. So in my role, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I would work with those different groups and make sure that the relationship is much better between them both.
Okay, thanks. So we'll come to Camilo for your closing statement first. You're muted.
Sorry. I want to invite everyone to vote. It's been mentioned in the beginning of this debate how engagement is pretty low, so we hope this time people will engage more. And I want to remind of 3 main points of my manifesto. So first, make better conditions for already existing societies, but also increase or improve the ones that are in Qatar campus, for example, so they get better access to funding. And in terms of the relation between the uni and the community at Aberdeen, I think we can improve that relationship and look for opportunities for internships or collaboration between the community and the university. And finally, main part of my manifesto also talks about international students and how their conditions, how their experience is very different from European students. So I think it should be like the university's focus to try to make every student to have a similar positive experiences at the uni, no matter where they come from. So thank you, and vote for me.
Okay, thanks. And to Gavin for the closing statement.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm just going to go through a few of the points I make in my manifesto, and obviously some additional thoughts as well. I think with the Qatar campuses and the Forest Hill campuses, we need to ensure that they are ingrained and as integrated into the University of Aberdeen as a whole as possible. We've made great strides, and if I'm elected, then I will absolutely make sure that for the Qatar campus and the Forester Hill campus, that they are as integrated as they possibly can be. We've made great strides with the Qatar campus and getting new societies set up for the first time in Qatar, but we need to do a lot more. And on the Forester Hill front, I will chair monthly meetings if I'm elected with the School of Medicine and the School of Dentistry and others. We need to, in the short term, ensure that the no detriment policy goes forward, and we need to, make sure that students get the best possible opportunities, graduates get the best possible opportunities. What are we all here for? We're here because we want to increase our opportunities, post our graduation and post our university career. So I'll increase the relationships and better the relationship between employers throughout the North East and throughout Aberdeen to make it as accessible as possible for undergraduate and postgraduate students. So please vote Gavin to support a strong recovery for our communities, and thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Gavin. Gavin and Camilo are your candidates for Vice President for Communities. Election opens on Tuesday the 16th until the 18th of March. And then we'll move on to our final candidate. It's Education. Last but not least, Andre. Remember, you can ask questions on Twitter at hashtag AskAusa. There we are. Hi, Andre. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's just you for this one. And you are the only candidate, no one's missing. It's perhaps best to take a moment then to remind people who are voting that, of course, there is also the reopen nominations option as well. But Ron can't be here today to speak with us as well. So it's just Andre. I'll let you make your 1 minute statement.
So thank you. So some of the things that I want to focus on are something that I've been also doing this year. So I want to improve communication, and I want to, improve the response that AUSA has to current events. It's sometimes quite difficult to address the ever-changing nature, and I think AUSA hasn't been traditionally designed to function on such a basis. So there's a lot of things that I want to do throughout next year, and another big topic that I want to focus on would be bringing the campuses together and also students on different timelines. So for example, the education or medical students, they're on completely different timelines than everyone else. So they cannot really engage with things such as freshers. They do not really engage with our class rep systems to the way that we would want because our trainings are too late for them and all sorts of things. So we've historically not catered to their needs, and that's something that I would want to do more, as well as connecting Qatar to our processes. And I would want to make sure that in any conversation that is concerning the Qatar students, there would be a Qatar representative in official capacity. And of course, working on decolonizing the curriculum. So we're really close to setting up a working group that will be looking at this over the next few years.
Okay, thanks, Andre. First question that's been submitted here, and remember you can submit more questions at hashtag AskAusa on Twitter. In your manifesto, you say that AUSA has overlooked students on different campuses and in different degree types, and students working at different on different time zones. As you have been a part of AUSA for a year now almost, why have you not done anything about this already?
So I've done certain things to reach out to those students. So I'm trying to engage with, for example, PGTs and PGRs in a way that we haven't before to cater to their needs more. And some, more catered communication plans and events plans already being processed, but due to our staffing, it wasn't really possible to do any big changes within a year. And the structure that both AUSA and the university are on, if you get, a policy or a plan changed, then that basically takes into effect the next year. Because by the time I gotten into my role, all of the strategic planning was already done. I did not have any say over what happened with that. And similarly with freshers, it's been in plan since January. So unfortunately, there was very limited amounts of things I could do at that point.
Okay, and what is your, in your manifesto, you say that you want to get us back in the Erasmus scheme. How will you achieve this? Because it seems very ambitious, considering not even the US has managed to achieve this, and this is obviously a national level. Is it something within the remit of a Vice President for Education at AUSA?
So I'm already in conversations with the university and how we can lobby the government, because university does lobby the government on a regular basis. So if you're keeping up with the news, Northern Ireland has rejoined the Erasmus scheme. So they've done it through a loophole where they sort of apply as just Irish students rather than Northern Ireland students. And they can sort of backtrack on what UK government has decided. So we don't have answers to what the Scottish government should do, but we're sort of in those conversations to ensure that this is one of their priorities, and they try to do what they can to ensure that we rejoin that scheme in the best capacity that we can.
Okay, ooh, brilliant. Okay, what have you learned from your year of being Vice President of Education, and how will you use that experience to help you once you're re-elected, or if you're re-elected, sorry?
So, as I mentioned, there have been quite big groups of students that have been quite overlooked in many of our structures. So they generally do not engage with us at all. So it's been quite hard to reaching out to them. So I would want to bring everyone together, and over my year, I've tried to make sure that any decision that is taken with students in there. And, we passed the new committee structures that will take place once the court approves it. But it was essentially make sure that there is a student on every school level committee, so that each school needs to have a student there to essentially proceed. We've added changes so that students are on all committees that are choosing the heads of school and everything like that. So, I've tried to make sure that students have as much say as they can within anything that happens within the university. So there have been a lot of changes in that area. And that's something that I want to continue and make sure that, they're not just a token there to have a tick that a student has approved this decision, but that they actually take into consideration what those students say.
Okay, and maybe a final question before we go to your closing statement. Has AUSA done enough with the no detriment policy?
I think so. It's quite difficult to judge these sort of things. We tried to move quite quickly at the start because we thought it was quite a priority. So me and the vice principal have gotten the papers together and everything within a matter of 2 weeks before it went to Senate. So generally speaking, you need to submit things to Senate at least 14 days before. So we're working on timelines that were not really doable for most part, but we still done it, and it didn't get through. And clearly we had to reevaluate what we do next. And I'm really hopeful that these new procedures that do cover the entire year will be passed. And we're gathering some really good data on, how students have been impacted, because it's not just about grades, it's about the wider situation. And, our students are working really, really hard, and we need to show the appreciation to them. So I think we've done everything we can so far.
Okay, brilliant. So do you want to go with your closing statement then?
So yeah, as I've mentioned, I want to see, connections happen in between our degree types and our campuses, because we don't only have the Qatar campus, but we have about 4,000 students that are studying purely online, no matter what, and we're not really doing anything for them. So we need to make sure that all of these students are catered for and supported by AUSA and supported by our class rep system, school conveners, and all the rest. So the student democracy is at the heart of everything that we do.
Okay, thanks, Andre. Andre is the only candidate for VP for Education, but make sure you still vote in this election as well. Details can be found on the AUSA website. What we'll do now is we'll bring everyone back in quickly. I know we're running over. I think that was going to be inevitable, wasn't it? Because it's just the way these things go. Unless AUSA staff want me to stop it now, and I'm sure they will tell me. Oh. Carry on. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we'll bring everyone back in quickly. There we go. You turn your cameras on. So first of all, thanks for participating in that. What we want to do is that there's people in the call here. If you want to put your hands up and ask any questions, we'll come to you. If anyone has any questions. Maybe they don't. I mean, if a candidate wants to ask a question, sure, yeah, Camilo.
Yeah, I would like to hear more from the rest of from the other candidates and the other, not only for communities but for other positions, to if they have any specific policies or ideas for international students, since we are an important population at the uni.
Okay, so if any candidate wants to come in, you can just raise your hand in the raise hand function. We can answer that question. If not, obviously you don't have to answer. But Elisa and then Ivana.
Yes, so in my manifesto, I mentioned establishing the Undoing Borders campaign at the University of Aberdeen, and this is to fight for migrants' access to university education, because people with irregular status are denied access to higher education entirely, and generally there are many financial barriers in accessing and enjoying higher education that are often insurmountable borders for international students. So the campaign aims to turn the university actively against the scheme of denying access and erecting financial barriers by designating students with temporary status under room fee status and offering full bursaries and providing other financial and administrative support for them.
Okay, I was just going to say as well before we go into this, just this is meant to be a bit more of a quick fire round. Not that I'm saying that your answer was too long there, Elisa, but just a reminder. Go Ivana, Andre, Natalie, then we'll go to the next question.
Okay, so my answer to this question is that in my manifesto, I have accommodation section, and in that I mentioned that I would like to lobby university to extend their guarantor scheme to also private accommodation halls, which usually are the halls that international students stay in, but you cannot get a guarantor scheme with our university for that. So you have to get a private guarantor or pay everything up front. This is not possible for all students, and therefore I would like the university, I would lobby them to extend this to all of the accommodations.
Okay, Andre?
So clearly the Erasmus scheme would be focusing on the international community overall, because it's not only outgoing, it's also coming students. But everything that, I want to do is to have everything extended to essentially everyone, and especially international students, because they sometimes cannot access some of the resources. So, it's really important within education to have that mindset that how does it affect other people, because you can sometimes design things such as reading lists, and somebody cannot access it from another country, then they're practically useless. So within my role, I want to still keep check on that and make sure that everyone's covered within this.
You're muted, Matthew.
Sorry, I mean that's only happened twice, which isn't too bad if you've watched Student Council. So I'm improving, which is good. Natalie.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that international students' welfare is something that needs to be treated differently to home students. There are problems that international students deal with that home students simply don't have to. These include things like language barriers to access university student support services. They are farther away from home and unable to access support from family and close friends there. And so I would like to focus on engaging with the International Students Forum to be able to ensure that their welfare is well taken care of.
Well, thanks. And just a reminder again, these questions are meant to be short answers. So just not that I'm saying that your question was too long, but just a reminder. The next question is from Jevon. Has any candidate here actually done anything specific historically to support people of colour and the LGBT plus students? Anyone want to put their hand up? Yeah, Victoria? And then Camilo.
Yeah, when I'm saying that I want to be inclusive for everybody, I also mean people of color and the LGBT plus. Like everybody, like doesn't matter your color or like your sexual orientation, you're happy and feel free to join any club. Like you don't have to feel less than others just for who you are, really. Like I know in football there is a transgender woman, and she's part of the football club, and I know other people who are like LGBT plus, part of the lacrosse or other clubs, and also like it doesn't matter your color or your sexual orientation. Again, it's just who you are and how you want to be involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Victoria and Camilo.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and the idea is that it's not only like empty promises and just like buzzwords, and so from my experience, start reaching the groups and the forums and the societies that I am part of. But my plan is continue to reaching and if possible have meetings or at least just have a message interchange with some of the different forums. So it makes sure that that their interests and demands will be part of my plan. So I think it's important that we don't only rely on saying these words all the time and inclusiveness or whatever, but we actually do stuff. So that's definitely on my plan, and I'm starting with what I know, but I'm definitely going forward that way. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get in as many questions as possible before people get bored, so I'm going to move on. We've got, how do you expect a productive working relationship with AUSA staff after spending 2 weeks insulting everything AUSA staff has done? And how will you manage this aspect of the work? I think this is specifically towards the president candidates. I don't know if we want to go to Elisa first. I don't know if George is still there. Elisa?
Yeah, sure. So I don't think I've particularly insulted AUSA staff. After all, they're there to, help us navigate whatever our role entails. And the changes any of the student president candidates aim to make go more towards the system of AUSA and how AUSA is managed, and don't attack particular staff members or their work. So I think maintaining a good relationship with them will be, I'm not saying maintaining work relationships is easy, but I don't think that anything that any of us has said during our campaigns is making us particularly vulnerable to have, a good relationship with them. And communication and transparency are key to that.
Okay, we'll go to George.
Okay, wonderful. I agree with what Elise is saying, in that I don't think anything that any candidate has said has been particularly directed at any of the AUSA staff. And that's what I want to make clear with the protest AUSA campaign, is that we're not attacking staff for their work, especially their hard work during this pandemic. What we are taking issue with is the way that AUSA is run and constructed, and the way that it has failed to represent students and serve students' interests. So I don't think that a protest candidate like myself being elected would have any negative impact on working relationships with AUSA staff.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this question came from a current sabbatical officer. So we'll go to who's got their hand up? Andre.
Yeah, I would just say that we disagree on a daily basis and we argue every day. But at the end of the day, we want what's best for students, and they're there to challenge us, and we're there to challenge them. Yeah. So I wouldn't have worries, because in the end, they're professionals. So I think whatever is said in this campaign, they will take it as being a campaign. Most of them, this is not their first election year. So I think they're used to it in most terms.
I mean, I know I cause enough trouble for them anyway, regardless. So, I mean, I'm sure that's fine. Gavin.
Yeah, I think I largely agree with what's been previously said. I think, you have your student representative bodies, whether that's committees, whether that's the Senate or what have you, and all those representative bodies make decisions, and they have the debates and the discussions. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the staff that will assist you, that will help you, that will push things forward, that will say, look, maybe that is a good idea, but maybe you could do this or you could do that, which would make it better or make it more feasible and more practical. So it's taking those concerns into account, but also working with the representative bodies and making sure that there's good cause between them all.
Okay, and just one of the final questions. Something that seems to have come up a lot in discussion is that a lot of your manifestos, I'd say this goes across the board, presume that things will be back to normal or closer to normal when you take office. How do you respond to that suggestion? And there is nothing to say that you guys too could not spend your entire year in a lockdown as well. So how would you deal with that? Does anyone want to come in there? Remember, short answers, if that's possible, with this big question. Natalie.
Yeah, so I would agree. I think we don't know what's going to come in the following 12 months. That is why, as part of my manifesto, I left a lot of my promises open so that we would be able to implement things either online or in person as it was available to us.
Okay, brilliant. Then we go to Ivana.
I believe that a lot of my manifesto points can be also achieved if we are still in lockdown, which I hope we won't, but who knows?
Exactly. And then Callum?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's still pretty, unpredictable, the situation, but I'd like to do quite a lot of virtual online events, and I'm also the co-founder and president of the Head First Society as well. So we would like to do a lot of goal setting sessions and virtual online events, but certainly I think that should be good. That's me.
Okay, Ursula?
Yes, I think most of my manifesto points are also things that would be very important if university would remain online.
Okay, thanks. Victoria?
Yeah, I also think most of my points in manifesto can be achievable online. And also, if we still being in lockdown like before, I'm gonna still pushing to be available to have outdoor sports, training session for everybody.
Okay, Elisa?
My manifesto focuses in large parts on empowering university society, student groups and forums to actually increase their online presence and to be more reachable online. And I think whether we stay in lockdown or whether we return to online presence, digital communication is so relevant and crucial in AUSA's performance and engagement over the next year.
And Camilo?
Yeah, I think lockdown and online learning have has brought like new problems, but mostly has shown like long-running problems and structural problems that need to be addressed. So I think my manifesto thinks in that like long-run, perspective, which is not only solving current problems but also thinking about making structural changes.
Yeah, never mind your election and manifesto promises. My waistline can't take another lockdown, so let's hope that doesn't happen. Just waiting because someone is typing something. Okay. So another broad question for you. What are your thoughts on the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and the controversy that surrounds it? Anyone want to put their hand up for that? I think that's a legacy hand, Camilo. We'll go to George.
Can you hear me? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
The IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and my background in this is that I've been aware of the political process that goes on behind it. I think it's something that has been introduced by students. The campaign has been introduced by students from a good position about trying to eradicate anti-Semitism from our campuses, which I agree with. The only thing I think we need to put into context in proposing the IHR definition is that it has been voted down by the UCU twice at National Congress, first in 2011 and then again in 2018. So whilst I would happily stand in solidarity with Jewish students and help their campaign to eradicate anti-Semitism from our campuses and from our society, the IHRA definition itself is something that has been voted against and rejected by the University and Colleges Union. So I think that's something everybody needs to be mindful of.
Okay, thanks, George. Anyone else want to come in on that? Or does anyone else that's on this stream, I can see there's various people who aren't candidates on the stream, want to ask any questions? No. Okay, so their final question. What do you guys miss most about campus? It can be anything you like. Put your hand up. Victoria, what do you miss most?
Basically, the interaction with people, like meeting new friends, meeting new people around campus, going to the library, like study there for exam periods, going for coffee, all that kind of stuff, like just uni in general, and sports, of course.
Yeah, that was quite a big night. In my head, I was thinking like I quite like the Mexican restaurant on the second floor of the hub, but that was really deep and sort of impactful. That's why I'm not running. We'll go to Andre.
I missed that with my committee. We cannot share snacks as we previously did during our committee meetings, and we cannot get wasted after having committee meetings at 6 p.m. So we all just go home.
Well, that's good. I mean, I have officially slyly eaten a Kit Kat as I've been talking to all of you over the past 2 hours, and I am proud of that because no one's noticed. Ivana.
I mean, as if Andre, well, he already picked it up, so I can continue. I miss going to the Macker, but also I miss having student council in person because it's much better in person than online.
Okay, then Orsoya.
Yes, I think I also just mainly miss being around people because right now I am quite isolated and I just miss having the interaction with my classmates and my friends.
Gavin?
Yeah, definitely the Macker. I think we need to get back and socialise as much as we can, as soon as we can, hopefully. But particularly at the Macker and maybe the Bobbin as well, just a bit.
I think we all miss the Bobbin. And Wednesday's not the same without wings. Callum?
Yeah, I got to agree. I miss the Bobbin a fair bit myself. Just that sort of face-to-face contact and being able to do, well, we were a new society anyway, but stuff with head first, face-to-face, like trekking up mountains or running together as a group. Obviously, we can't run together and whatnot, so just societal stuff as well. So.
I mean, I've just learned that apparently my camera's been off this whole time, so I didn't have to slyly eat a Kit Kat, which was quite difficult. Elisa?
I miss mainly talking to people and engaging with people that I don't necessarily engage with online just because I would bump into them on campus.
Cool. And Camilo?
Yeah, I miss a place to socialize and a place where I feel like we are actually receiving the resources and support from uni that we are entitled to receive. So I think online is not the same experience, and I miss that feeling.
And finally, Natalie, unless anyone else wants to come in.
I really miss all the sort of wide open spaces on campus. I miss being able to bump into people, as Alyssa said. What I don't miss, though, is the seagulls. I'm very happy I've not seen them for a while.
That's true. It's good that lockdown has coincided with seagull mating season this year. It's safer for all of us. On that note, thanks to all the candidates for coming to this Q&A, and thank you very much to AUSA staff for helping organise it as well and helping it run quite smoothly. I hope you've all enjoyed yourself, got your points across, and you know, helps raise the knowledge of the campaign, because as has been an underlying theme throughout the Q&A, that we need to get more students involved in the running of the association, thus more students voting as well. This isn't it this evening for these candidates. They also have to come and speak to me for the Gaudi as well, so just in case you forgot about that. So we're doing that quickly as well, so make sure you check out the Gaudi social media as well to hear more from these candidates, and across AUSA social media as well. It's really important, regardless of who you're going to vote for, that you do vote. Voting opens on the 16th of March until the 18th of March, and the winner will be announced on the 19th, or winners will be announced on the 19th of March at AGM. That's me as well, in case you're not already sick of my face like I am. But that's at AGM as well on the 19th, so make sure you tune in for that as well. Make sure you vote. Information's on the AUSA website. And thank you very much for everyone and joining in and participating as well. Thank you. I might have missed something. Thanks.